welcome to another edition of the Pro AVL podcast. My name is James Cook, and today I'm speaking to Jonathan Wyner. Jonathan will be President-elect of the Audio Engineering Society from January 2020, and in January 2021 he becomes President. I'm speaking to Jonathan ahead of the upcoming AES New York convention, which takes place from the 16th to the 19th of October at the Jacob K. Javits Convention Center in Manhattan. Our conversation covers several topics. We discuss his background in the pro audio industry, what AES is and what it has to offer, and how you can get involved no matter where you are around the world. You're not going to want to miss this, so without further ado, here is my conversation with Jonathan Wyner. Jonathan, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Thank you for joining us. I know what's a very busy time for you guys with AES New York coming up in just a couple of weeks at the time of recording.
That's right. I think we're about 2.5, 3 weeks away, and we're certainly at the apex of our planning cycle right now, just dotting the I's and crossing the T's, as it were.
Oh, it's all going smoothly?
Very smoothly. It's exciting. There's such a thing as too much of a good thing. I think sometimes this moment can be described in that way, but we have some late-breaking and interesting sessions and events that are popping up, and I think there's some interesting potential partnerships with industry and technology partners that will make this an exciting year.
In terms of AES, the Audio Engineering Society, we cover them quite a bit in our magazines and online. Tell us a bit about the society and what they do.
The Audio Engineering Society, it is, I think, unique in the world in that it is a very broadly focused international professional membership organization focused on audio engineering. So it's really inclusive of everything from people doing research to manufacturers to practitioners to people thinking about audiology and technology that's focused on hearing. And so it's so broad and so wide-ranging, both in terms of workflows, categories of interest. It's a very big tent, and there's something for everyone, I think, at the Audio Engineering Society. We also have a very strong focus on our student membership, and we have strong student chapters all over the globe that are hosted by universities globally. So it's an exciting place to be, if not a little bit dizzying, given the breadth and reach of it. We have a very strong standards effort where manufacturers will come, and we have technical committees made up of some of the leading thinkers in the industry to help in defining standards that will address the needs of users and are also kind of cross-discipline or cross-functional, if you will. The other thing that's interesting as a benefit to our membership is that we have a very strong e-library where people can log on and see presentations by users. Some of them are household names to audio engineers talking about their work and their histories and sometimes giving expert advice or instruction in different areas. And so those are just a couple of the things that I think people who come to the AES find valuable.
You recently become the president-elect, I think, over the summer. Is that right?
Well, I've been elected to the position of president-elect, so technically speaking, I'm currently serving as convention co-chair, and I'm also a governor. I will become president-elect proper in January of 2020, and then I'll become president in January of 2021.
So what does the year entail as president-elect, and then how does the role differ when you become president in 2021?
One is president for 1 year. The reality is that we really have a group of dedicated volunteers and staff that are working on issues in an ongoing way. So being president-elect means that one joins the executive committee and the board of directors and really begins to participate in helping set direction, problem solve, and continuing to build on efforts that have been started by previous presidents. I have some things that I'm particularly interested in fostering in terms of programs on behalf of the AES, but there's a large way in which this is a collaborative effort among a group of dedicated people. And so I will join that group.
What was your current position?
In no particular order. I'm a long-time mastering engineer and audio engineer and producer, but over the last 15 years, I've also been the education director for a company called Isotope, which makes audio signal processing solutions for creatives and also for post-production engineers, producers, and songwriters, and so on, and forensics and post. And I also teach at the Berklee College of Music in Boston, and I also teach at the online school, and I'm an author there. So everything that I do seems to be focused on either helping artists or helping people to do better, to do the things that they want to do better. It's quite a varied list of things that I get to do, and I guess I thrive on variety.
You might find a bit of time to sleep, sort of in between all that.
I'm working on it. I could probably use some help there.
So how long have you been involved with the organization?
Well, I've been a member of the organization for more than 30 years. It became clear to me when I was just a few years into my career as an audio professional that it was an important place to network with people and keep up to date on what's new and what's going on and to learn and get excited. The annual conventions and conferences that we put on are always a place to refresh and remind yourself what's exciting about the work that you do day to day. And so, even as a younger person, that was very much at play. And I became more involved in the planning cycles in the organization starting several years ago, mostly because I wanted to understand what went into putting on conventions and conferences and how decisions were being made, and to have a chance to give back to the organization and to the community.
We have an audience kind of around the world, but because our two main magazines are Pro AVL Asia, Pro AVL MEA, I mean, AES obviously have a global organization, is that correct?
It is a global organization. We do have chapters all over the world. We have a chapter in Tokyo. We've actually started to see some efforts popping up in a couple of cities in China. We've got chapters everywhere.
For people listening, I mean, no matter where they are in the world, is there an opportunity for them to get involved in the AES and remember?
Absolutely. And I think, it's important to me that we not see the Audio Engineering Society as being tethered to any particular territory. There certainly are areas. It's interesting to think about why the strongest chapters in the population centers are where they are. I suspect that some of it has to do historically with where audio manufacturing has been focused and centered, and also research. We have a pretty strong group of members who are involved in research efforts. So that would mean that, in California and in London, but also in Asia, we have members who are concentrated in those places. There's a bit of an ebb and flow, I think, over time also in terms of where our membership resides and where we see chapters popping up. We're seeing quite a few chapters now that are being formed in South America, and there's some really strong interests around universities there, and some people who have a lot of energy to rally the community and identify themselves as a community of audio professionals, and they're starting chapters. So I guess what you could take away from that is there's always an invitation when there's a group of people who sees other people who are in their area and are similarly interested to get together and, in a way that's maybe a little bit more formal, connect with the Audio Engineering Society. So yes, in short, it's a global organization, and I think as we move to the future, that will necessarily increase and become more the case.
So AES holds events around the world as a result of that as well. I believe, so obviously we've already mentioned you have AES New York coming up. You also hold events, I think, in Milan, Dublin.
That's right. So we have annual conventions, one that happens every year in Mexico, one that happens in South America in various countries. There's one in the US, there's one in the EU somewhere. And then we have conferences that are smaller events that are focused typically on single interests that happen all over the world. We just had a headphone conference. We have a conference in automotive audio. Last year we had one on audio restoration and preservation. We will have one next year on audio education and other topics that I'm certainly forgetting. So the big conventions happen regularly, but even those will change location depending on the needs of the community.
So what you're saying is, depending on what somebody's looking for, one show or one convention, one sort of session might not be sort of as applicable as another one, perhaps.
That's correct. We've seen a huge interest in immersive audio, and that will even show up, for instance, in the automotive conference or the headphones conference, but we are having an immersive audio conference next year near Microsoft in Washington State here in the US, and we also had one this past year in Tokyo. Anyway, to your point, yes, you'll find that there's something for, well, I can't say something for everyone because I can't anticipate who everyone is, but in general, there's a lot of diversity around topics.
I imagine as well that focusing on various topics for different events kind of really helps you, I guess, for the AES react and potentially, evolve, kind of as you say, you mentioned like immersive audio, for example, as that's come about. It's a kind of still quite a new field. Focusing on that, I guess, really kind of spices up your shows, your conventions.
That's right. I mean, we should reflect the interests and the appetite and the activities of our membership. And so while we have a deep and storied history and we can draw on that and educate people who are looking to level up and come up into the industry about what are the best practices going based on what has happened, we also are made up of a bunch of people who are used to thinking ahead and thinking about what's next and pushing the edges of the technology and workflows. So it's not a surprise, I think, to find that AES is a place where you're seeing people thinking about things like immersive audio or artificial intelligence and machine learning as it affects audio or other things that are more aspirational and thinking ahead.
What can potential visitors to New York in a couple of weeks expect?
Yeah, boy. Well, it's hard to capture all in a few sentences, but, broadly speaking, actually, something that we started over the last couple of years is some programming tracks that are focused on workflows and genres. And so this year, we're introducing three new tracks into our technical program. We have one that's focused on hip hop and R&B production, one on electronica and dance music, one that's focused on electronic instrument design. Last year, we started a makers track called the Audio Builders Workshop, and we'll be repeating that this year. So those are some of the new things that are showing up in the technical program. We've also got a couple of long form trainings. We've got one in producing immersive audio and also one in audio restoration and repair. These are new efforts to AES. They're 3.5 hour long trainings in a particular domain where there's limited sign up for these, and you come in and you spend 3.5 hours leveling up your skills and learning about each one of these topics. We have a very strong product development track, and this year the product development sessions are also going to be connected with some exhibitors upstairs. So after a product development session that's about something related to developing loudspeakers or whatever, a loudspeaker manufacturer will host a follow-up conversation up on the exhibit floor. We have a huge exhibit area. We expect about 14,000 people through the doors this year, looking at everything that manufacturers and exhibitors have to show. And we also have a continuation of our tracks around broadcast audio. We have white papers that get presented in our papers sessions. We have student-focused sessions. And the other thing that I want to mention that's been very important to the Audio Engineering Society is the notion of diversity. We have a very strong diversity and inclusion effort that is part and parcel of planning and thinking about AES and our membership. And diversity can mean so many things to so many people, whether it's in terms of geography or in terms of discipline or in terms of genre. And we're trying to embrace all of that, but also looking very hard at gender equity issues. We have a thread of programming that's a stripe of programming that's being programmed by the Women's Audio Mission, which is based in the West Coast in the US, and Sound Girls as well. We have a group in the UK that's doing research around who shows at AES, who shows up at conventions, who the presenters are, just so we understand the extent to which we really are representing the people who are doing the work out in the world. And if we're not really being representative, we want to make sure we understand why and figure out a way to do better at that. So the whole notion of diversity, I think, is something that's very much alive and very important at the AES.
AES truly is for everybody. Fantastic. And in terms of the show, obviously, so AES New York takes place 16th to the 19th of October at the Jacob K. Javits Convention Center in New York City.
Correct. You've got it.
And I'm right, Vicky, as well, because it runs alongside NAB, the broadcast show. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're co-located. Boy, that's a hard word to say. Yeah, we're co-located with NAB, and that's actually been a very good partnership for us. NAB obviously speaks to a slightly different audience. They really appreciate our presence in representing best practices and technologies around audio, and their exhibits are available to our attendees, and the opposite is also true. So the partnership has yielded some sort of good and new opportunities, I think, for attendees for both organizations.
I know another partnership you have as well is with NAM. So the NAM show takes place in January over on the West Coast. So AES, they've kind of had a presence at NAM. Is it a couple of years now with regards to kind of educational initiatives?
That's right. This is our third year at NAM. And this year, our focus is really on expert level training in various domains. There's a man named Mark Frank who's put together a fantastic program along with his team where people can come and take a deep dive over the course of a day. Again, it's really focused on skill building and learning and education in various domains. One of the things that's actually interesting that we're doing this year is we're also partnering with an organization that's focused on providing educational programming to secondary school educators and other educators to figure out how to bring technology and audio technology into their programs. And that will be a first for us this year at the AES Academy at NAM.
So NAM, as I say, takes place just January 2020. AES New York once again, 16th to 19th of October in New York City. If anybody's looking to get involved with the AES anyway, or to attend one of your conventions, how could they do that?
Well, attendance is easy. There's registration links that are available right on the AES.org website. And quite often, manufacturers will offer their own set of passes to gain free access to the exhibits floor. And if you're interested in becoming more involved with AES, if you can't find a local chapter, please write us directly via the website. But if you happen to live near a local chapter, you can write to them and find out when their meetings are, and all are welcomed.
And just to confirm once again, that website is aes.org. Thank you very much, Jonathan. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate your spending this time with me. And if anybody out there happens to show up at AES, please come find us or find me and say hello. I look forward to seeing you there.
I'm sure they will do. Thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate it ahead of this very busy time for you.
Well, thank you.